Zakhar Popovych, who is an activist who has spent a great deal of time at and in the Maidan protests. Is a member of the editorial board of the Commons Journal in Ukraine.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris, for your presentation. Can I point just really a couple of things, not in connection of Maidan? Yes. Well, you should understand that modern Ukrainian state was originated not on the western Ukraine, but on the east. Yes. The capital, the first capital of modern Ukrainian state was Kharkiv, actually. Yes, and it was a national Ukrainian, Soviet Ukrainian state, and this state organized this campaign for mass literacy. Yes, and first absolute mass literacy in Ukraine, in whole Ukraine, from Kharkov to the west, was in Ukraine. Yes, and all this Ukrainian Renaissance authors, yes, were Ukrainian communists, actually writing books, making plays, cinema in Kharkiv, mostly, in the capital of Ukraine. And Russification of Kharkiv also was a little bit the story of the Stalinism. It was not from the beginning, yes. And in media, you can very frequently see that about something about the Russian-speaking East, Ukrainian-speaking West. It could be true in some sense, but you should understand that all Ukrainians knew both languages, actually. It is not the problem of somebody knew only one language. Me personally, and Professor Boytsun, for example, yes, well, everybody. If you go to any shop in Donetsk, Lugansk, Kharkiv, and you speak Ukrainian, you have no problem. Everybody will understand you, and in most cases, people will respond in Ukrainian. The same story in Lviv, actually. If you ask somebody in Russian, they will probably respond to you in Russian. Probably sometimes, if they see that you are Ukrainian, but you are not speaking Ukrainian, they can ask you why you are not speaking Ukrainian. But if you are, for example, a foreigner and you will speak Russian, you will have absolutely no problem in any part of Ukraine, as well as Ukrainian language. So, this is, we have a Ukrainian nation, yes? And the problem is that most of this nation actually fight against Nazis in World War II. It's a very small fraction of Ukrainians actually support. Yes, it is the problem that this heroization of the story of those who collaborate with Nazis is now popular in the West and partly in the central Ukraine. And the division between the West and East really is not the question of being Russians, or it is the problem for many people that this story of being Ukrainian as being the successor of this SS division Halichina and so on is not acceptable for many people. Well, this is a history point. But let me make some points about Maidan, actually. Probably it's not the meeting about the history of Ukraine, but more about the things we saw last months. The first point, I'm absolutely sure that yes, it is true that many foreign forces could possibly want to manufacture Maidan, but it was not manufactured. You can't just manufacture such a mass movement, and it was really huge, yes, and it it was not by some people who came from the west to Kiev. There were people who came, but it was a small fraction of the movement. Most of the people in Kiev support Maidan. Because of support of ordinary people in Kiev, it actually wins. Well, I can give some example, yes? When these emergency laws were introduced on 16th of January, people in Kiev became angry with the fact that all the protesters are now criminals according to these laws. And if really on the Maidan Square you can see mostly Ukrainian speaking people, most from people who prefer speaking Ukrainian, many from Western regions. But in this battle on Grushevsko Street, when the violence began, I saw personally mostly Russian-speaking young people, and well, actually, young people were more fighting, and some Kiev people who support them. Yes, I saw this queue of just small cars, people supplying the auto tires to this Maidan. It was just an initiative of grassroots initiative of some, well, ordinary people of Kiev, probably some small business, some workers, everybody. Some grandmother helping grandchildren to bottle these Molotov cocktails and so on. Just these things, yes? And because of such mass support from Kiev people who are not really in this tradition of being in support of Bandera and so on, because of this support of ordinary people, it wins actually. The police could not disperse it. Yes. The next point, probably. It is true that radical right systematically tried to remove any leftist from Maidan. But it was not that easy, because when it was mass movement, we felt ourselves absolutely safe, because most of the people did not support removing of the left. Only when it was relatively more small action, yes. So you couldn't, for example, it was impossible to go through the tent camp with red flag. But as soon as it was a mass rally, I can bring my red flag, and some people can ask me questions, but nobody attacked me. Yes. Let me push. Yes, and after this, after the violence began, actually, the character of this movement changed to be more to the social agenda, much more broad than just a Euro integration or some nationalist agenda. And I was very surprised when I was speaking on the meeting in one of the occupied buildings. It's Ukrainian house. It's a big building, the former Lenin Museum. Actually, I was a pioneer, and first time I was in this building when I was granted a membership of pioneer organization. It was, and then the next time I speak there during this revolution. Yes, they have a big portraits of Bandera and Shukhevich. There are very many nationalists. The commandant of this building is from Svoboda party, actually. But the first floor of the building was partly occupied by students' assembly, by, well, mostly leftist students. And we organized many debates, presentations, and we were distributing this 10 points program. You can just see copies. And if you will read it carefully, probably you will see that it is written by people in tradition of Trotskyist transitional program, yes. And to be honest, many times during our political life, we wrote such things like that, and and well, we felt ourselves as our obligation to write something like this. But when we distribute it, we surprisingly face this very positive reaction of people, and not only leftist students, but some guys, older guys from western regions of Ukraine. Actually, it was an anecdote, yes? One of our comrades tried to explain these points more deeply, trying to say, well, you should understand it's a neoliberal policies of world capitalism and EU, and they are pressing Ukraine. Some grandfather was reading, was just hearing, well, stop please. Take our 10 points and say, well, we have this, our Ukrainian original document, and it points all absolutely rightly. And just read our document, explaining why every point of this is. And actually, this elderly guy from some western Ukraine village probably feel himself as anti-communist. But he understands communists as Stalinists who suppress Ukraine. But he is in favor of this demand of social lustration. It's just our attempt to translate the Bolshevik slogan of 1917 to remove bourgeois, to restrict electoral rights of bourgeoisie, and to build a system of not just a popular democracy but a workers' democracy. Yes, they supported the demand for workers' control, which is absolutely unacceptable for liberal opposition. Yes, but every time we speak about these things, we face the support from people. Other anecdote, yes. I met, we were showing films there in movies in this Ukrainian house, and one guy from the front line came to us, wow, you have such a good screen, we should put it near the police to make police to see the real life, because they have only government propaganda, they don't see the TV channels telling truth. And he told me, they think we all are Banderovics. Well, actually, at first time, I was not sure if he is Banderovets or not. But he was angry with the idea that he is treated as Banderovets. It's, well, there are many Banderovets on Maidan, but the composition of this movement is much more complicated. And after all, yes, I'm not sure how much we influence the movement actually, but after Yanukovych ran away, we saw in official statements of Maidan demands to tax all oligarchs by 10% of their wealth, for example. Yes. Demands of participating democracy and so on, of right to withdraw the deputies from their positions, yes, and so on. So we saw that social agenda was very important for people on Maidan. Well, one more anecdote, yes. On one meeting, I told people that you should notice that some people, some right-wingers from opposition, say that after we will win this revolution, should introduce some program of austerity to have credits, and this austerity will mean some cutting of some social benefits and so on. People were just angry with this idea. This 100 of people began to shout that it is impossible, yes? And it was not students, it was mostly just some guys from Western Ukraine who come to Maidan. And now government is introducing kind of austerity measures. Not that hard, but we saw the tendency. And they declared that they will introduce something like this. Well, let me. Yes, one more story. Yes. How much time I have? 10 minutes. Okay, two short stories. First, about the occupation of Ministry of Science and Education. After Yanukovych ran away, these students from Students' Assembly, mostly leftists, occupied the building of the Ministry of Education and Science. And the trick is that by some treaty between the leaders of opposition, the position of minister is given to Svoboda. It's a quota of Svoboda party. But when guys from Svoboda tried to came to occupy this building, students just don't allow them to go in. They have a student self-defense unit, and they said, well, you will not go inside. If you have some students, well, we can personally allow to enter some students if they will show a student's ID. And well, these Svoboda guys just go away because, well, probably they have enough, they could possibly mobilize enough force to remove forcibly the people, but they decided not to do this because it would be clearly a big battle, because they have this fire hydrants, yes, they had Molotov cocktails, some traumatic weapons, guns, and so on. So they decided that it would be better not to make a battle here. And after a new minister, Mr. Quid, was elected by Rada to this position, he entered to the Students' Assembly, and during 2 or 3 hours, he was just explaining his program of reforming the education, answering very unpolite questions from some students who asked him about his right-wing background. And he was forced to explain that he is not that right-wing, that he is and after all, he signed the roadmap plan with the students, with all demands they pose. And now we are going on this roadmap plan. One of the first points was the publication of accountancy raw data. So every transaction, yes, every posting of accountancy will be published online from the 1st of April in France. So I'm personally now involved as an expert in organizing this automation and publicating of this. But it is only one demand. And these representatives of Students' Assembly are now systematically present in ministry to control the steps of this roadmap. But yes, this guy is actually Svoboda supporter, but she forced to act very democratically at the moment. And the last point why I really think that this revolution is that it is revolution and it has a social character. This is the story about the workers of Kryvyi Rih. Kryvyi Rih, yes. Kryvyi Rih is a very big city in Ukraine. It's not the regional center. It's a city in Dnepropetrovsk region, yes, but it is huge. The people of Kryvyi Rih said that it's the longest city in Europe. It's like 120 kilometers long. Because it's a city of connected mines. It's a line of this iron ore deposit and mines open and different mines and the big metal steel Kryvyi Rih ArcelorMittal plant there and some other plants producing steel. And well, it is mostly Russian speaking, Ukrainian city. Most of people feel themselves Ukrainians, but well, most of them speak Russian. And the Maidan was there a big event. Well, it was thousands of people came to this Maidan, which is very untypical for this city. You never saw such mass mobilization. And Maidan was launched by some merchants from markets and some small business elements. But probably the majority of this Maidan now is the workers, the miners, because the majority of people, the 90% of people in this city are workers, are miners. And the independent union of miners play a very significant role in this movement. They formed a self-defense unit of -100 so-called. And they formed it because the Russians who owned, these Russian oligarchs, yes, who owned enterprises, tried to organize paramilitary units, titushkis, yes, to smash this Maidan, to beat physically the participants, and they fire some offices of oppositional politicians in Kryvyi Rih. And that's because they formed this self-defense unit. And now they are patrolling with militia, with local police, with the city, and they're in support of Maidan. They are not in favor of our government appointing oligarchs, but well, they say that Russian oligarchs who own these enterprises are much more hostile to unions than this Mr. Kolomoisky, who now is appointing the governor of the Dnepropetrovsk region. So at the beginning, they feel like in November. I spoke to them, they said, well, we are generally probably support this Maidan, but we don't feel as it's our revolution. But now the situation changed, and they feel that yes, it is our revolution. They participate actively. But from other hand, in Mariupol, for example, this is not far from there, in Donetsk, also a big city of heavy metallurgy. The owners are mostly Ukrainian oligarchs, and we can see a mass mobilization of anti-Maidan. And also under some social slogans, actually. Well, about the nature of government, yes, probably what I think the most important. I will not evoke, but 2 minutes just, yes. I try to. I think that it is true that this government we have is the worst that Maidan can accept. But Maidan accepted it, and to some extent this government is approved and reported to Maidan. And that's because they can't just be too far right, too neoliberal and so on, because this mass movement pressed to them. it is true that there are some very nationalist elements and these neo-Nazi minded, I think. I don't think that we can consider Svoboda as a really Nazi party. But the leaders, yes, they are dreaming about some kind of Nazi party, of Nazi state and so on. I'm sure that there are many of such guys in the leadership of this party. But I think that we should accept this government. We should politically support it. But it would be right, I think, to press Russia, to press other countries to accept it till the election of new parliament will occur. And it is very important to press to make these elections as soon as possible, because at the moment they declared that at 25th of May we will have only a president election. But the problem is that the very big fraction of our parliament are this party of region deputies, MPs, yes, who change their mind by the moment, at night. And the people of the East are very angry with him. They feel themselves betrayed. Because these guys just, the people of Sevastopol, for example, they voted for this deputy who was among the first who changed his mind to support new government. And to reunite the Ukraine, we should consider this government as provisional, and we should press to the election or re-election of parliament. And actually the workers in Mariupol put this demand to re-elect the parliament as soon as possible as one of the first demands. But new government is in favor to postpone this election for 2 years, which in this situation is just impossible. Well, can I have one more minute? Is it okay?
No.
No. Well, I think that backing Russian intervention and not opposing it is very dangerous now, because I think that in Russia as well as in Ukraine there are forces who really wanted to escalate the situation. And it's not just about the Crimea. We think that yes, Crimea should have the right to self-defense, but after the Russian troops would be withdrawn, there are virtually no Ukrainian troops, and now we have kind of semi-self-determination under the machine guns of Russians present everywhere. It would be not recognized, and it would be a disaster for Crimeans to have such kind of independence, because it would be unrecognized by Ukraine, by Western governors and so on. So no air connection, no train connection, no electricity, no water supply, semi-war situation, no tourists actually. I think that very small fraction of Crimeans will really benefit from this kind of independence. But the question is not only about the Crimea. If Ukrainian new government will push not to re-elect and re-establish kind of representation and legitimacy by new election, but just push the order in Lugansk, Donetsk regions, as we had saw just the day before, some guys from right sector come to Lugansk, some of them with machine guns, some shooting, but nobody was killed or injured, but situation is very, very close to that. And if they will push, and if some shooting will occur, if some people would be killed, it is very probable that Russians will intervene. And it looks like Putin is trying to push fast. And you should understand that it's impossible to divide Ukraine peacefully. It would be a big mass disaster. it's very populated regions with very different fractions. The fractions of people who really want to reunite to Russian immediately is very small. Most are Ukrainians who don't want to be Banderians. And of course it is a fraction of people who are Ukrainians and consider themselves Banderians. And we have, Ukraine is one of the major weapon exporter in the world, yes? We have enough weapons to arm everybody with machine gun. And you, if you want.
Definitely.